Hey y'all, it's Nikki Winston. Welcome to another episode of the WERKin Mommas podcast. I hope y'all are doing well and in good spirits and staying safe. This episode today, I want to focus on the CARES Act and talk about the stimulus payments, the small business loans that are available, and some of the other relief efforts that are contained in the CARES Act, which is actually a document that's over 800 pages. And so there's been a lot of questions I've received from really business owners for the most part asking about the loans and how they can make payroll and continue to run their businesses, excuse me, in light of COVID 19, also known as the coronavirus. I have people who are asking about stimulus payments and how to get them, how much are they going to get, when should they expect to receive it, what is it based on, what if I owe back taxes, what if I owe child support, all these other different things. And so I want to spend this time today walking through some highlights from the CARES Act and try to summarize this 800 plus page document in this episode. In the show notes, there's also a link to a memo that I drafted for clients and friends, which is just the CARES Act and the impact that it has on households and small businesses. So, a lot of what I'm sharing in this episode, you can also find it in that document if you want to take some notes or refer back to it later. So, there's a quite a bit of detail about the different loans that are available, the stimulus payments, some of the payroll tax credits for employers, the expansion of the Family and Medical Leave Act, some assistance that's available to the contractors, the 1099s, the freelancers, and everybody in the gig economy. And there's also a summary page in the PDF document that's attached in the show notes, just so you can have a quick reference or maybe hang it up in your office or share it with people in your network. But just given this situation, it just seems like a scene out of a movie. like like this, like we are just living in just some crazy times right now. There are households and businesses who are looking for ways to shift their focus and operate in an unfamiliar way. The COVID-19 pandemic has created this new wave of entrepreneurs. So there are people who are maximizing this whole hashtag quarantine and chill opportunity, but it's also created more moments of panic for entrepreneurs and businesses who never thought of or even prepared for something like this, and the adverse effects that it could have on their business. So, in response to COVID 19, the CARES Act, which stands for the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, was enacted by Congress to provide assistance to small businesses, households, and even our freelancing friends. Because, like I said, usually they're excluded from these types of things because they're not considered an employee, because they're a contractor or paid via a 1099. But this act is really just very comprehensive. There are stimulus payments, disaster loans, business grants, payroll tax credits, expansion of the Family and Medical Leave Act, as I mentioned, and a plethora of options for you to apply for, and just make sure you keep the lights on at your house and in your business. Some of the things in the act, based on what I'm reading, I'm sharing this episode based on what I'm reading and my interpretation, because there are some things, when I read it as a CPA, from my standpoint, there are some things in there that are very gray. And depending on who you talk to or what side of the table you're sitting on, those things can be interpreted in different ways. So there's still some subjectivity there. And that's really a function of the fact that this is very new for everybody, even for the lawmakers. Things are very fluid right now. And the goal was to get some relief out quickly and figure out the what ifs later. There are going to be some exceptions to the rule and some special circumstances, but the priority was to provide resources in an effort to stabilize the economy in light of COVID-19. So I'm going to talk about some of the common questions that I've been getting asked about the stimulus payments, the loans, the eligibility, how much can I get, what are the repayment terms, and also how this is going to impact your taxes next year, because there's always a tax implication, right? So first, well, let me grab my water real quick. If this is your first time tuning in, thank you. I appreciate you. This is my podcast. I don't edit my podcast. I just like to say what I want to say and talk about things that I love and things that I'm passionate about and things that I have expertise in. So I don't edit my podcast. I don't live an edited life. And a lot of times when I'm recording my episodes, I have some type of beverage, whether it's some tea or a green juice, some water with something in it, some lemon, some lime, some blueberries, some ginger, some mint, some chlorella. But today I just have my plain water, but I've drunk out of my 116 ounces, I have 40 left to drink. So I like to stay hydrated. And when you do a lot of talking, you need a beverage. But anyway, let's start first by talking about the extended tax filing deadline. So the normal April 15th deadline has been extended from July 15th, or from April 15th to July 15th. This includes the form, I think it's 706 or 709, the gift returns, 1040s for individuals, 1120s for corporations. Partnership returns were still due on March 15th. And like I said, there's just a lot going on right now. It's a lot of new legislation, things in place that we're doing for the first time. Some of it might be unclear or misunderstood. I have seen a lot of information circulating online that's wrong information. And I don't know where it came from. And I just wanted to share my thoughts and my expertise as somebody who is a CPA, but somebody who also actually read parts of the CARES Act. I'm not going to sit here and say I read all 800 pages, because I didn't, but there's probably one person I know that read the whole thing. So I want to bring some clarity to some of those things today, especially for the entrepreneurs and business owners who are trying to apply for these loans. And I want you to understand the process, and that there are agents such as accountants and attorneys who can help you fill out these forms. But I want you to understand what that entails, and to understand that there is not a payment that you have to make to an agent or somebody who helps you with this application, because as agents, we are paid from the lender fees. So you should not be paying any money to somebody who says, hey, let me help you fill out this application for a fee or whatever they choose to charge. And again, this is based on what is written in the CARES Act. And I know that some people looked at it as an opportunity to capitalize and maybe charge people for this, but it's just it's a struggle to charge people for something like this during a time like this. It's so new, and what do you even base your fee on? And then for me, as a CPA, I have questions about, well, what if I'm helping somebody fill this out and they're including information from their financials? They're not a regular client of mine. So I can't agree. I don't know that the financial information that they're providing is even accurate. So still a lot of things to be clarified when it comes to the actual application process, but I at least want to tell you what's out there. So aside from the tax filing deadlines being extended to July 15th, that includes actually filing your return and paying any amounts due. Also, for our self-employed and freelance friends, when you normally make your estimated tax payments, that deadline has also been extended to July 15th. And so now I want to jump into talking about the loans, because that's where a lot of people's questions are coming from. So the first one, the Paycheck Protection Loan. This is a loan that is available from February 15th until June 30th of this year. It's available through SBA and Treasury approved banks and credit unions. The SBA, also known as the Small Business Administration, they've guaranteed these loans at 100% through December 31st of 2020. After December 31st, the loans are guaranteed at 85% up to 150,000, and then any loan over 150,000 is guaranteed at 75%. There's no collateral, there's no personal guarantee or credit check required for to apply for this loan. And there are also no fees, no penalties, none of that associated with this loan. And you can essentially go into a bank or apply online and have basically the United States Treasury as your co-signer. The loan is fully guaranteed and backed by the government, and the purpose of this loan is for the proceeds to be used to help you make payroll, make your payment, your mortgage, your rent payments, your utilities, and the overhead that you need to support the ongoing operations of your business. So, who is eligible to apply for the Paycheck Protection Loan? So, the SBA Section 7A of the Small Business Act defines a small business as a business that's either for profit, a nonprofit, or even a tribal business that has less than 500 employees. The employee count does include full timers, part timers, and even temps and contractors who are working at your company through an agency. So, speaking of contractors, certain self employed individuals like sole proprietors, freelancers, and those who are working in the gig economy, you are also eligible to apply. You must provide proof of your status as a freelancer or a sole proprietor. Also eligible are the businesses with less than 500 employees per location, but they operate under the food and beverage code. So those who provide lodging, meals, snacks, or beverages for consumption. So that's our hotels, our restaurants, our convenience stores. So another thing I just want to say is that while the restaurants and stores are still open, if you can support a restaurant, a locally owned restaurant in your city or your neighborhood, please do. There's a couple in my neighborhood that, even though I love to cook and I'm cooking a lot more these days, we do have a couple, maybe once a week, where we try to have dinner and support one of the local restaurants in our community, because they're great people, they have great food, and whatever we can do to help them keep their lights on, we're going to do that. So, how much money can you get from the small business paycheck protection loan for your business? So, once you've determined your employee count, you will have to determine your payroll costs. And if you've been in business for over a year, that's going to be the average of the last 12 months of your payroll costs, which include wages, salaries up to $100,000, commissions, tips, vacation pay, severance pay, insurance premiums, basically most of the expenses that you incur when you pay employees. If you're a new business, you will use your average payroll costs for however long you've been in business. If you just started your business, if you was one of those people who said, you know what, it's January 1st, it's 2020, I'm starting a business, you can use your payroll costs from January 1st through February 29th of 2020. So, in that calculation, this is another one of those gray areas. There's been a lot of questions, and I've been in touch with some of my CPA friends, and we are exchanging messages back and forth like, well, do you think that the payroll cost includes this, this, and this? And so we're trying to come up with our own interpretation, and of course look to the CARES Act for some additional guidance. But I do know for certain that payroll taxes are excluded from that calculation. Any compensation beyond $100,000, as I mentioned, any employees who live outside of the United States, and any sick or medical leave pay that you pay as an employer under the Family First Coronavirus Response Act. So that's another act or another piece of legislation that came out as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So lots of words, lots of exceptions to the rule and things going on with all the eligibility criteria and things like that. So to put this in some perspective, I want to try to use a simple example. So let's say that all of your payroll costs are $240,000 for the last 12 months, right? That means that your average monthly payroll costs are the $240,000 divided by the 12 months. That's $20,000 a month. So under the Paycheck Protection Loan, you can receive either 2.5 times your average payroll costs. So in this case, that would be the 20,000 times 2.5, which is $50,000, or $10 million, but it's the lesser of the two. So we're talking about $50,000. So what can you use the money for? And is it a forgivable loan, or do you have to pay it back? So the covered period for the Paycheck Protection Loan is from February 15th through June 30th. So during that time frame, you can use the money from the Paycheck Protection Loan to pay your employees, pay your rent, your mortgage, your utilities, any interest on mortgages, business mortgages, or any debt obligations that you've incurred prior to the covered period, prior to February 15th. As far as the terms of the loan, so you get up to 10 years to pay the loan back. Maximum interest rate is 4%. There's also a guaranteed deferral period before you start back making payments of at least 6 months. It can go up as far as 12 months. If you use the money to do the things like the payroll, the utilities, the rent, the mortgage, then the first 8 weeks of the payment are forgiven, tax free. So typically, when a debt is forgiven, you'll receive a 1099-C, I believe it is. Yeah, 1099-C debt cancellation. You'll have to take whatever amount was forgiven or written off and include it as part of your taxable income. But this forgiveness in this case is tax free. So anytime we talk about tax free, there's always an exception or an asterisk or a caveat. So if you cut any employees, if you lay off any employees, or if you cut their pay during that 8 week period, then part of your forgiveness amount goes away. All right. So let's go back to this example where you had the 20,000 a month in average payroll costs, and then you get your payroll protection, your paycheck protection loan of $50,000. So you get that money in the bank today. That means for the next 8 weeks, you will continue to make your payroll, pay your rent or your mortgage, all your utilities. And let's say after 8 weeks, the total amount is $45,000. So that means of the $45,000 that you use from your $50,000 loan, $45,000 of that will be forgiven. You don't have to pay it back because you used the money the way it was intended to be used. Now, what's left over, the $5,000 balance, you have to pay that back. But again, you have that automatic 6-month deferral that can go up to 1 year. There's, of course, documentation and things that you have to provide. And you also have to certify that you are providing information that is true and accurate. So that's really the Paycheck Protection Loan in a nutshell. Just trying to again sum up 800 pages in a podcast episode. There's also the $10,000 emergency advance grant. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute, but that's something that in conjunction with the Paycheck Protection Loan you can also apply for and possibly receive for your business. And then there's also a lot of people, well, I'm not going to say a lot of people, but a good amount of people, accountants, attorneys, etc., who can talk you through these things, help you with your payroll cost calculations, and just trying to make this all make sense and make the best decision for your business. So moving on to the next loan, this is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. So another loan available under the Small Business Act, Section 7B2. It's known as the EIDL. And this disaster loan is to help small businesses stay afloat when there's been a qualified disaster. And COVID-19 has been deemed a qualified disaster. It's a global pandemic that we're trying to emerge from. We will emerge from. So the economic injury disaster loan program, it covers the period of January 31st to December 31st. So the covered period is a little bit different from the paycheck protection program. It spans a longer time frame. It's still available to for-profit businesses, nonprofits, less than 500 employees, contractors and sole proprietors, self-employed, gig economy workers are also eligible. And there's some things in this act, things can start to get a little confusing, or just you have to repeat it to make sure you make sense. It makes sense. So even if you applied for a payroll protection loan, the one we just talked about, a paycheck protection loan, I don't know why I keep calling it payroll protection, but you can still apply for the loan, the disaster loan under 7B2. The catch is that you can't use two different SBA loans for the same things. So this 7B2 loan has to be used for something other than payroll, because you applied for the paycheck protection loan to take care of that part. So if you end up getting both, you can actually finance this loan into the paycheck protection loan, because the paycheck protection loan has some lower interest rates. So again, 7B2 is guaranteed by the SBA. And this one, you may have to pledge your business assets as collateral. So I just wanted to put that out there, that there are some criteria and things that have to be met, some paperwork and things that have to be shared and verified and go along with your application. So I want to jump back to this $10,000 emergency advance grant, because the cool thing about this is that the CARES Act is saying that you can receive this $10,000 within 3 days of submitting your application. Now, earlier today, as I was talking to some of my CPA friends, we were talking about clients who have already applied. They applied earlier this week, Monday, Tuesday. So if you apply on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, today is Thursday, and they are blowing up the inboxes. Where's my money? I thought I was getting the $10,000. They only said 3 days. And I think this is one of those things where they were overly optimistic. We know that our government moves slow on a lot of things. So it could be such an overwhelming response and so many applications that it's probably not even possible to fund everybody from an operational standpoint, and just having the right people in place to make things happen and push all the buttons. It's probably not operationally feasible to do it in 3 days, but it's still worth applying for. This is a grant. This isn't a loan. That means it doesn't have to be paid back. So even if you applied for the economic injury loan and then you didn't get it, but you get this emergency grant, this is still your money to keep, to make sure your business stays afloat, satisfy any business obligations that you have. And so the other thing with the grant is, if you get this $10,000 grant and then you also get the paycheck protection loan, for example, any amount that would have been forgiven in your paycheck protection loan is going to be reduced by the amount of the grant. And I want to specify it's up to $10,000. It's not $10,000 on the dot. It's up to $10,000. So keep that in mind. So that's really the big part of the loans, but I do want to touch on the stimulus payments, because if you have a business, that's for your business, but there's also relief for you as an individual taxpayer. And so these stimulus payments are designed so that taxpayers will receive a $1,200 payment if you are single or head of household, $2,400 payment for married taxpayers, plus $500 for each dependent under 17. Again, we're talking about tax-free money from the government. So you have to understand, beyond just getting a check in the mail, what all of this means. This payment is actually an advance payment of a tax credit that taxpayers are going to get on our 2020 returns. So the returns that we file next year in 2021. The payment amount is going to be based on your AGI, your adjusted gross income from your most recent tax return. So if you filed your 19 already, then your payment is going to be based on that AGI. If you did not, they're going to look at your 2018. I don't believe they're going any further than 2018. So if you haven't filed a tax return in 2018 or 2019, or if you're not on Social Security, then you probably will not receive a payment. Since we're on the subject of who will and who will not receive a payment, if you don't have a valid Social Security number, you will not receive a payment. If you can be claimed as a dependent on somebody else's return, you won't get a payment. And if you owe child support, you most likely will not get a payment. If you file I had to laugh. I've seen so many memes on social media about people who are waiting for stimulus checks but owe back child support, and it cracks me up every time I see one. But anyway, so if you file a joint return, the $2,400 credit starts to phase out after $150,000 of AGI. Single taxpayers, you start to phase out at half of that at $75,000. Head of household, $112,500. And the IRS is working to issue these payments as quickly as possible, but the payments can start anywhere between now and December 31st. My personal just perspective is that these are going to start very quickly, and I don't know too many people who would be waiting until 12/31. You'll receive the money either through direct deposit that is included on your tax return, or they'll mail you a check to whatever they have as your most recent address, and they'll send you a statement just saying, hey, here's your stimulus check, this is what it's for, this is how much it is, this is how we calculated it, this is how it's going to impact your next year's tax return. So another question I'm hearing a lot is, but I owe back taxes, am I still going to get a stimulus check? So the IRS is relaxing on the offset rule. So even if you owe taxes, even if you owe them money, you could still receive a stimulus payment. But keep in mind, this will show up on your 2020 tax return. And if you get let's say you're a married couple and you have a 16-year-old kid. So you'll get $2,400 for being married taxpayers, $500 for the 16-year-old. But then, and that's this year, so you'll get $2,900. So let's say next year you file, the kid is 17. So now your tax credit that you were entitled to is only $2,400 for a married taxpayer, because now the kid is 17, so you don't get that extra $500. So you might end up having to pay that back, or it might show up as a shortage on your tax return. But I haven't seen any documentation in the CARES Act that talks about how to collect from the taxpayers who get an advance payment that's more than their actual credit. So that's why I say it's a very fluid situation, and the priority is to just get relief to people and try to figure it out on the back end later. But the opposite is also true from what I read, is that if you get an advance payment of, let's say, $2,400, and then you file your return next year and your refundable credit is $3,000, that $600 difference becomes a refundable credit to you. So still very fluid, but I just want you all to be informed and know what options are out here available to you. Some other relief options and tax related things I wanted to touch on. There's still the traditional 7A loan from the SBA, from the Small Business Administration. This is the normal loan that you can apply for at any time, disaster or not. You can get up to $10 million. The rates are usually 3% or less, and you have up to 25 years to pay the loan back. There is collateral required, but there are expanded options as far as what you can use the money for. So it's not just a a payroll or a working capital type of loan, but you really have a lot more options as far as how to utilize that money and invest in your business. Again, the SBA guarantees most of it, up to 85%. They also make subsidy payments for principal, interest, and fees if you have a Section 7A loan. And there's no forgiveness on this one, but at least, like I said, you do get the principal, the interest, and the fee subsidy, just depending on the state of your business right now. So choosing the option, quite a few different things to choose from. And you really have to not say, I'm going to go after this one because I can get $10 million, but really think about the needs of your business, especially the immediate needs of your business. And really, the most caveats are around the paycheck protection loan. So I would say, and don't use this as any advice. Don't take this and run with this and make decisions based on what I'm saying. This is my podcast. This is my cathartic and therapeutic type of space, and I'm just giving you my thoughts and my opinions, and it's not to be construed at all as any type of CPA consultation or any advice. Okay? So, based on what I read, the paycheck protection loan has the most caveats, what ifs, the most exceptions. And so if you don't have a lot of payroll, just because the gist of the payroll of the paycheck protection loan is to make your payroll and pay your rent and your mortgage. If you're a sole proprietor, for example, or if you're an entrepreneur and you have maybe one or two employees and you don't have a lot of payroll, then maybe the paycheck protection loan is not the first option for you. And you may be better off with the disaster loan, which is still up to $2 million, is guaranteed by the SBA, less than 500 employees. It's available through December 31st, as opposed to the paycheck protection loan, which is available through June 30th. And you also have the option to apply for the emergency grant. So a lot of different things. Just really pay attention to where you are in your business and how to make the best decision for you based on if you're struggling to make payroll, if you have notes payable and debt and debt payments that are due that you can't make, if you're trying to buy more supplies or trying to get product out the door, then just really look at that relative to the options that you have available to you. So there's also some payroll credits that I want to touch on really quickly. Payroll credits that are available to businesses just basically as an incentive to keep your employees. It's like an employee retention credit. If you keep your employees and keep them at their current salaries, then you have you'll be entitled to some payroll credits. The other thing that the IRS is doing is deferring the how do I want to say it? They're deferring the employer tax payments on payroll. So instead of having to make your monthly or quarterly payments to the treasury for your payroll taxes, they're giving you a deferment so that you can instead divert that cash flow to other parts of your business and to keep your business going. So there's still the process of calculating these payroll costs, trying to figure out what needs to be included, what doesn't, and just a lot of fine print. There's a checklist of things on the SBA's website, which I'll include a link to that in the show notes as well, just to talk about the checklist and some of the documents you need to have readily available when you apply. And I would still explore this no matter how small or how big or how small your team is, to look for this credit for payroll taxes. And don't confuse it with income taxes. You'll get a credit on the employer portion of the Social Security tax, which is 6.2%. So there's also some implications to retirement plan contributions, charitable contributions, the employer pays student loans, which that blew me away when I saw it, because I'm like, who are these employers who are paying back these student loans? Like, shout out to y'all. All the employers need to jump on board and do that. Um, and then of course, let's talk about the paycheck protection loan again, since we're on the subject of payroll credits. If you get your payroll protection loan forgiven, or any part of it, you don't get the tax credits, because it'll be like you're double dipping. You're already getting a bunch of support, a bunch of concessions through the paycheck protection program. So to come back and say, well, I want to get a payroll credit too, you can't double dip. So just keep that in mind as you go through and make your decision. And because there are a lot of decisions, a lot of different options, different loans and the grant and things like that, you can actually have more than one loan product. So if you have the paycheck protection loan, for example, you can't go and get another loan to make your payroll. And I said this before, but I'm repeating it because as I continued to read the CARES Act, there were some other loopholes and things that I was just trying to talk through and make sure it made sense. So you can't use other SBA loans to make payroll if you have a paycheck protection loan. The fine print is that even though you can't use, how do I want to word this? So if you use the paycheck protection loan for those 8 weeks up through June 30th, right? If you have another SBA loan product, a 7B or 7A loan, you can use them for payroll, but it just cannot be payroll for the same employees, or it cannot be payroll in the same time period. So if you have a paycheck protection loan and then that helps you make your payroll through June 30th, and then you also have a 7B loan, you could use that 7B loan to make any payroll after June 30th. You just can't use, even though it's all payroll, it's different pay cycles. So you just can't use the same product to do the same exact thing, if that makes sense. So some other takeaways from a tax perspective: net operating losses went away. Those are back. And if you've had a loss in the last, I think it's this year, you can either carry it back 5 years or forward through next year, through 2021, to offset any taxable income. What else? I'm trying to think about, there's just so much. Let me look at my notes. There's so much in the act, and I just wanted to highlight those things that people are the most curious about. How do you apply? Go to, let me see if I still have the link up, but you can go to sba.gov and do the application online. You can also Google SBA loan application and it'll pop up for you. And I would love to hear how things progress for y'all as far as the application processes. The paycheck protection loan application opened up on the 1st, I believe, or Monday, this past Monday, which was like March the something. But I believe the 7B application opens up tomorrow. And so I can imagine the system being inundated with so many requests, applications coming in, phone calls, emails, just all kind of things going on. So I would say definitely apply. Don't be discouraged by a delay, or maybe the website crashes for a minute. Everybody is out here trying to survive, trying to keep their businesses afloat. And so just make sure that you are diligent, that you really take time through the application, calculate the things you need to calculate. If you do need the help of myself, I'm a CPA, or of an attorney, definitely reach out to me. My email is Nikki, Nikki, at nickWinstonCPA.com. That's Nikk Winston, Winston, CPA.com. I'm also on Instagram and Twitter at Nick Winston CPA. on LinkedIn too, but I'm usually hanging out on Twitter or Instagram. So, what else? I think that's it. Again, it's just a ton of information. Make sure you're informed. Be cognizant about who you are relying on to provide this information to you. Make sure that they're using credible sources to provide you with information or help you complete your application. So, those of you who are my regular listeners, thank y'all for tuning in. I tried to I tried to make this short, but it was hard to make it short. But I really wanted it to be informative. And so I hope that this episode brings you some clarity as far as how to pivot and how to run your business going forward, how to take advantage of the resources that are out here in light of this COVID-19 pandemic. And there are businesses all over the globe who have been hit hard, but small businesses really, really felt the brunt of this. And so anything I can do to help y'all bounce back, get back on y'all feet, I'm more than happy to do that. So please share this episode, tell your business besties, your community, your network about it. And I hope that it was valuable for you. It doesn't cost a thing to share. It only costs a couple minutes to share. And if you have any questions, definitely hit me up. I'm happy to assist and do what I can to help everybody through this tough time. So thank y'all for listening. Stay tuned for more episodes. I have a couple of WERKin Mama episodes where I'm just talking about mom life and how we're navigating this whole working from home with these kids 24 hours a day. Have a couple episodes for some CPA exam tips. The CPA candidates are struggling to find motivation, as can be expected. The CPA exam is already a challenge in itself. So to deal with that on top of dealing with this pandemic makes it hard to study. And of course, career convos, where I answer career questions that people send me either on LinkedIn or just through my website or through my email. More than happy to talk about just really now the career convos are going to get interesting since everybody's working from home. And some people see that as an opportunity to relax, but it's very much an opportunity for you to step your game up. So be on the lookout for those episodes. Again, feel free to share this episode with everybody who is trying to find some guidance when it comes to these business loans and the CARES Act and the stimulus payments. And thank y'all for tuning in. I hope y'all are well. Stay safe, stay strong, be inspired, and I will talk to y'all soon.